Ladies and gentlemen of the press, from the beginning, the opposition displayed an authoritarian behavior in Parliament, and it permeated into every realm of their activities. The arbitrary use of the opposition's one-seat majority convinces us that APNU and AFC have no regard for Guyanese and the well-being of our society. The opposition's attitude in Parliament yesterday confirms Guyanese worst fears. Their vote against the Anti-Money Laundering and Combating Financing of Terrorism Amendment Bill clearly demonstrates that the opposition is responsible to no one, to no organization, to no social institution. The very PNC, now APNU, through former Finance Minister Carl Greenidge as the main architect, was responsible for the destruction of the private sector, the economy, and the entire nation. Today, under the leadership of David Granger, the opposition advances another phase of its agenda to destroy our beautiful country. From the inception of the commencement of the 10th Parliament, the opposition breached the Constitution, parliamentary norms, convention, and principles when it grabbed the Speaker and Deputy Speaker's positions, took control of all the parliamentary committees, illegally instituted budget cuts, ditched the hopes of Guyanese for cheaper electricity by killing the Amila Falls Hydro Project, and now exposes Guyanese to severe consequences by its non-support of the Anti-Money Laundering Bill. The opposition, which was elected to represent Guyanese, has consistently shown scant regard for the private sector, the labor movement, the rice farmers, the teachers, among others, many of whom are part of their constituency. AFC Vice Chairman Nagamutu's comments last evening, saying the private sector does not have a vote in Parliament, is not only unfortunate, but also reckless. Then Greenidge referred to the private sector as a bunch of propagandists. This wouldn't surprise any of us, since Greenidge presided over the worst period of economic mismanagement and unaccountability in Guyana. The implications of not having the anti-money laundering law are far-reaching with dire consequences, and it would be true to say that the opposition will be imposing hardships on our people. One, the smooth transfer of money from local to external banks will be severely impeded or terminated. An overseas bank has already severed ties with local banks. 85% of those in the insurance industry depends on reinsurance from overseas. It means our people would have great difficulty with their fire insurance, life insurance, mortgage insurance, among a long list of insurance services. Thousands of Guyanese who depend on remittances from overseas will experience how difficult and burdensome it will become to receive money from the money transfer agencies. It will no longer be instantaneous. The aviation industry is wholly dependent on equipment, spares, and other services from overseas. Like so many other sectors of business who procure their goods and services from overseas, they will suffer. Government employees overseas and students abroad on scholarships are among those who will experience difficulty in receiving their salaries and stipends. What is worse is that long before they cast their vote, the opposition was well aware of these consequences. Clearly, the opposition parties are determined to damage the economy and the body politic. They are well aware of what their actions will be and will cause. They were briefed fully on this matter. We saw their actions in voting against bills in the security sector, and more recently, the Amaila Falls Hydro Project, the Chedijagan Airport expansion, the new specialty hospital, the new Marriott Hotel project, to name a few. The action last night, November 7th, will forever go down as the worst form of economic sabotage by the opposition. With last night's development, all hope is now lost that the opposition has any intention of being a partner in developing our country. It is in this context that I am forced to re-examine my government's future relationship with the opposition political parties. In the meantime, I have charged my two representatives to CFATF, Attorney General Anil Nandlal, and FIU head Paul Gear, to explore thoroughly ways of dealing with the impact of the opposition's action in rejecting the anti-money laundering and combating financing of the terrorism bill. Thank you very much, and I will take some of your questions.
Sir, in light of what you've just said about the opposition and the former speaker's position that the only way to end this political stalemate is to call general elections, what prevents you from going this route? And could you say also what are some of the options available to Mr. Nandlal and Paul Gear in exploring a way forward?
Let me start with the last part of your question first. I am not clear what the options are, but I'm asking them to do what they can, because very clearly, this is not an action caused by the government. This is an action that is caused by an opposition who seems to be gung-ho of getting power at any cost. It doesn't matter how many lives they destroy. And therefore, I hope that that could be taken into account when they go to CFATF next week. On the other part of the election, that's a different issue. We can have another press conference to talk about that.
Michael Young, could you say, President Ramadan, you said Michael Young, the Evening News, you said that your government is forced to re-examine its relationship with the opposition. Could you explain what that means and what this process of re-examination would entail?
Well, this only happened last night, so we still have to go into more detail with it. What is obvious, that I have some constitutional responsibilities that I have to deal with the opposition on. But it is very, very clear to me that the opposition has no intention of being a partner to develop Guyana. You will recall that we had several discussions with them immediately after when we were putting our first budget in 2012. We had agreements on those. We stuck to our side of the agreement at all times, and the opposition has never did stick to any of their agreements. On the Amaila Falls, we had indications that they were ready to support it. They requested to have a better idea of what was going on. We took them to the falls, we took them on the road. We gave them every single piece of information, all the information. They knew as much as we did about the Amaila Falls. And once again, they chose to reject that project completely. So very, very clearly, that it appears to me that they have absolutely no intention of cooperating. with the government for the social and economic development of this country.
Chad Rams, True News Update. Mr. President, can you name the international bank which has severed ties with our local institutions?
Maybe I'll leave that to the Minister of Finance to do. But I think, if I'm not mistaken, I understand Citibank is the bank that has severed ties with the country.
All right, Janelle Prasad, NTN News. Clearly, some have said that compromise is necessary in situations where, such as Guyana, where the government has a minority, and you talked about re-examining your work with the opposition. How optimistic or how pleased are you with the level of compromise your government has made in this process over the last 2 years?
We are the only ones that have been making any compromises, as I mentioned in the budget talks, right? In the budget talks, we are the ones that have been constantly making all the compromises in all of these discussions. The discussions that are taking place at Linden, we are the ones who are making the compromises. The opposition has made no compromise on any of these things.
How then are you going to move forward on issues of national importance or development?
Well, we have been moving forward despite all that has been taking place. We continue to be committed to do all that we possibly can to keep moving forward. But what I'm saying is, it is clear to me now that the opposition is not willing to help in this process. That I don't have a partner in the opposition for development of our country.
Sir, can you elaborate a bit on what you mean by moving forward? Because we've had the security bills being killed, the Amilo Falls project killed, CJIA monies cut. What do you define as moving forward?
Well, we are constantly looking for ways and means that we can still have developmental projects, and we still have. Now, what the opposition has done here actually is not only trying to affect the government as a source of pushing economic development forward, but they are now trying to block another very important sector that can push our country forward, and that is in relation to the private sector, the work that the private sector has been doing. You know, they employ thousands of people. They are in production, in gold mining, in different areas of our economy, agriculture, and so forth. And now this here is going to have an impact on them. And therefore, as I said, now knowing very clearly that we cannot depend on any support by the opposition, we have to look for ways and means how we can get things moving in that direction.
Paul Moore, NCN.
I can't get into more details than that. So, as I said, this has just happened last night, and we have to examine these things. Yes.
Paul Moore, NCN News. Sir, you mentioned the engagement with the opposition. On this particular crucial issue that can affect Guyana, have you sought to engage the opposition leader, particularly Mr. Granger, or bring him into account on this issue here?
Listen, this matter went to the select committee. I have tried to meet Mr. Granger on other issues to include this among other things, to talk with them. We met, we spoke sometimes. We were supposed to have been, I spoke to him this week for us to have a meeting to discuss some constitutional issues. I was also planning to raise some of these things with him, but he didn't have the time. On the issue of generally about the participation, this matter went to a select committee. This bill has been in the Parliament since April of this year. It went to a select committee in May of this year. The opposition has done everything to drag its feet, to filibuster. They have not made any suggestions. They have not put forward any suggestions, as they are talking about strengthening the bill and all of that publicly. They have made no suggestion on any of the bills. They were talking about going back to a select committee. We were ready to go back to a select committee, which we told them last night. Just we wanted a timeline, because this is the month that the CFATF is going to meet to decide on these issues. They have refused to do that. So we try to engage them, not only at my level, but we try to engage them where they want to be engaged in the parliament. And we have done every single thing. Just before the parliament recess, they stopped the process. They moved that they end the process before the parliament suspended, and not to meet again until after the recess. It was their motion, which they used again the majority to vote for, to have these things stymied. So, and of course, you know that both the Minister of Finance and the Attorney General, they have been speaking constantly on this matter and explaining fully what are the consequences involved there. So, as far as involvement is concerned, I think the opposition did what they did with their eyes wide open.
Earl, Starbrook News. Two questions. You mentioned, your government's intention to continue with developmental projects. I'd like to mention two of them. The Amila project, that's one, and the Marriott. Now, for the Amila, has there been any serious expressions from any other external partner to look at the project?
Okay, let me answer that. First of all, the very partners that we have are still showing a very strong interest. And we have had expression of interest from more than one other sources.
Right. Yeah, and the other project, the Marriott, could you say at this point whether your government is prepared to disclose the name of the investor, the company that has signed with the government?
That is with the NISIL, and they will disclose it when they conclude it, when they conclude all of these agreements. All right?
Mr. President, Andrew Weeks, HGP Nightly News. Another situation developed in Parliament last evening is financial paper was laid showing that your government, Finance Minister Ashley Singh, has approved $3.3 billion without the Parliament approval. Is that a sign that shows that you are thinking of ways to savor relationship with the opposition party?
How is that
Sever.
a sign?
Sorry, sever.
How is that a sign that we will sever?
Well, you just stated that you're thinking of ways.
That's a normal procedure, that if you have to take supplementary, you have to take it to the Parliament. That I don't see. There's nothing special about that arrangement.
Is that what it wasn't approved?
That's a normal process. That's a parliamentary procedure that we were going to do. Yes,
Mr. President.
Sir, just about 2 weeks ago, Jamaica also passed its anti-money laundering bill. Dr. Luncheon said that our bill was created by CFATF. So the suggestion is that everything there was CFATF. Are you in a position to say whether the same bill was given to Jamaica for passage in their National Assembly?
The origin of all of these amendments in all of the jurisdictions in the Caribbean, it's to block. First of all, we already have a law that we passed that all the countries in the region passed, working with CFATF. The amendment, based on the experience that has been gathered, was to block any loopholes in that law. And it is generally the same thing. There might be any minor variation, but in general, all the whole idea is that all the jurisdictions should have one law to prevent criminals, drug traffickers, and so forth from using weakness in any country's legislation to launder money. So yes, it will be more or less the same thing.
One of the problems the opposition said they had with even the existing law is the fact that it was not being enforced. One of the Financial Intelligence Unit later report in Parliament yesterday stating that there were 800 suspicious transactions, money transfers. Could you say what, if anything, were these investigated, and what, if anything, came out of that? And if I could follow up quick on...
Some of these, I can't answer you specifically on some of these because a lot of these are information that would be collected by the staff who are managing it there. And I know that with this amendment, it was also moving very strongly to create a strong investigative arm to be involved with this. This was part of the amendments that we're passing here now to set up a strong investigative arm to be linked with the police to deal with some of these issues.
Sir,
Miss-
if I may, please, what is going to be the fate of the bill? It was killed last night, but it is necessary. What happens now?
Well, all of that we have to look at. I mean, very, very clearly, as I said, the only or one of the appeals that we can make is that the government has the political will and the desire to move this thing ahead. That is one of the appeals we can make. Whether it will have any impact, that is left to be seen.
Mr. Ramatar, your government has been clear in outlining the consequences of the non-passage of this bill, and so has the Private Sector Commission. So the consequences, we understand, are dire. What would be your message to the people of Guyana who would now be worried about what the possible side effects that they could face as president of the country?
Well,
What would be your
in my statement just now, I hope that I've gotten over to the people of the country the message that I want to get over to them, that this seems to be a deliberate attempt to harm their social and economic welfare.
President Ramsar Michael Young, you said that you're going to re-examine the relationship with the opposition. Is it safe to say that the talks at the tripartite level and those discussions that you have with Mr. Granger, opposition leader, may be in jeopardy as a result of all of the posture that would have been demonstrated so far, postures by the opposition parliamentary parties?
I have also said that this is a recent occurrence, and we are going to do our examination, but obviously this can't be business as usual. I've also said that I have constitutional obligations that I have to meet with the opposition on, and I will discharge my constitutional obligations to its full. The rest, we will see what will happen.
The APNU, this weekly media briefing this morning, said that the government is to be blamed for the death of the bill. So to say, how would you respond? Because they're saying that the PPP had the bill for about 13 years.
I think they're trying to find a fig leaf. I think they're trying to find a fig leaf on which to cover themselves with. It is true, you remember that I myself had made a statement and I wrote to the opposition leader that there was some delay largely because of the transition that took place when we had elections last year. But this matter is with the Parliament for 6 months. 6 months it is with the Parliament at this point in time. All right, I'll take one more question.
The finance minister last evening tabled amendments for the Procurement Act to preserve the cabinet rule. Could you say if the opposition defeats this bill also, would government still go ahead and set up the Procurement Commission?
Let's cross our bridges when we come to them. But let me say this, to just get it, because you said to preserve the government's role. And I think that it could be misunderstood to say that the cabinet wants a role to award contracts. Let me make it once again very, very clear that all the cabinet is asking for is to have a no objection to any contracts or procurement that is awarded. And it's based on the principle that if we are the ones that are answerable and we are to be held responsible, that the minimum we will have is a no objection. And this is not unique. I don't know of any other country in the world, if you can probably investigate it and find and tell me which country in the world, some of them even have a procurement commission. Their cabinet always award their contracts. So you can investigate how many countries in the world got a procurement commission. We instituted it. We started it. It was changed not by the cabinet. It was changed on the floor of Parliament, and we wanted that to correct it. And it's also based on a principle too. Look at all the projects that we had with our partners. the Caribbean Development Bank, the IDB, the World Bank, and all of them have to give a no objection before any contract is awarded once they are involved in this matter. So we are moving on this thing on a very principled position. It's an international thing with them, and for us, we are probably one of the few, if not the only country that has set up this type of organization, and we don't think that it is unreasonable for us to have that, just to clear the air. Thank you very much.